I'm really excited about NFTs, so I'm going to just dive right in. About 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, I was really enthralled by what was happening with the Bored Ape situation. Obviously, it was a bull run for a particular type of NFTs that didn't have anything to do with impact or the environment. But what was interesting about them was that they were essentially a financial instrument that was really rallying around this idea of community, and that actually community mattered significantly when it came to the actual value of the financial instrument. And I was quite obsessed with this idea of what could be done within the impact idea of social movement. And so one of the first things that came to Sean and I's mind when we were thinking about the future of NFTs was this idea that they could be more than just a financial instrument. Could they be, very multidimensional? Can you play with it like a toy? Can you use it to monitor your impact? Can you use it as a source of revenue? Like, what is it that you can do that is more than just one thing? It's not a static profile picture, but it's something that actually has dimension to it. And so that was the first question that we sort of asked ourselves in 2021. And then the second question was really about what externalities are contributing to the value of an NFT? Are they able to change over time, evolve, regress? Can you make them responsive to externalities? And what does that mean for social impact as a movement as well? The third question that was super important, and I think the one that a lot of people are asking here today at this conference, is this idea that impact doesn't have to be, let's say, the outcome of a decision. It's not that we're going to donate X% of the proceeds of a sale to charity, which, we do. But the reality is that we wanted to make it less of an outcome and more of an embedded utility into the core value of the NFT as an instrument itself. Therefore, connecting and decoupling a lot of negative narratives around impact and ownership of public goods like a rainforest, and sort of reimagining what that value might look like so it's actually feeding the rainforest as opposed to owning the rainforest. And the last question that we asked was, is there a world in which all of this idea that they can be responsive in real time, that they can look at external data, that they can be multidimensional, et cetera, can all of these things come together in a world where it's not just that the market sets the price for resale, but actually that you have some degree of financial sovereignty, at which point you're taking an NFT for the moment that it's in its evolution or its metamorphosis, based on all of the actions you've done toward whatever action or cause or movement that you care about, and then can you turn that into higher return for yourself in a financial market? And if that's the case, then actually NFTs pose a really interesting new financial instrument that can really influence the way we build movements within the environmental and also general sustainable development agenda. So we started experimenting with it and played around with this idea of rainforests. And I love rainforests. I grew up in them, and I have been sitting on the board of a rainforest conservation agency for a couple of years now. And so we really wanted to figure out what this could look like and what it would mean to put all of these questions to test through this instrument. And what it would mean to actually decouple this idea that if you bought some kind of digital plot of land, that meant that you own a plot of land in the rainforest, and somehow that gives you rights to it or something. We really wanted to separate that idea because we were working through partnerships with a lot of local and indigenous communities, and one of the big premises and beliefs that they hold is that they aren't owners of the land. They're custodians of the land. They care for the land. Rainforests are a public good. In fact, every 7th breath anyone takes anywhere in the world is facilitated by a rainforest. And so this idea that, we really wanted to take away utility as ownership and add utility as passion and commitment to a cause was really important to us to be able to create a cycle of impact that would render this NFT much more impactful. And then the market changed, and we're all down, I know. But surprisingly, there were a few trends that we started picking up on, and it gave us a real opportunity to understand why impact NFTs are actually right now gaining more momentum or holding steady as opposed to other types of NFTs that have just completely been wrecked. And so there was something really important that I think the grander narrative around market skepticism about NFTs is missing, and that's that we're talking about it as if it were 2017 and we were talking about tokens and that there's a bubble and that this is going to be reflective of the general economy in the world, or it's going to be reflective of what's going on with the token market. And in actuality, NFTs are interesting because they don't perform the same as tokens, and they're different in very key ways. The most important way is that they're not just a financial instrument. It's that they're a financial instrument that is built around the premise of movement and culture and community. And so when you look at certain types of NFT projects that have been able to successfully leverage this, they're holding very steady. A Bored Ape sold for over $1 million very recently in the middle of a bear market. And there's a reason for that. And it has nothing to do with the economy. It has a lot to do with culture and movement and community. And so because NFTs aren't performing in the same way or responsive in the same way, and sure, trade volume is down, but realistically there are some projects that are getting this right, we started to pay attention to why. And these things sort of came together as an understanding that the power of NFTs holding steady through a bear market is actually the intangible, non-economic value that they offer around organizing movement, around being a cultural shift to things, and around organizing people toward a particular direction. And so we've noticed, for example, that companies like Minecraft just announced that they're canceling all their NFT strategy, and yet this is in large part because they feel that gamers aren't responsive to NFTs. But what we've actually noticed is that people aren't responsive to NFTs when gamification is the end, not the means. And so if we change the premise of why we're gamifying things in the first place, actually the projects hold steady. We noticed that projects with high amounts of community and lots of engagement and very active discussion in their communities are doing really well. They're holding very steady. We noticed that impact projects were actually on the rise as opposed to in decline, and that a lot of these projects were donating money to charity, yes, but people were now starting to ask more sophisticated questions about how to make NFTs a lot more impactful, and those projects were gaining traction too. We noticed that artfulness was really important, that we're starting to see an upgrade in terms of the quality of projects that are coming out and the quality of artwork that's coming out. And some of the most exciting generative art projects, for example, are in the fine arts category. And so we were looking at an evolution of what's actually holding steady. It's more sophisticated artwork. And finally, we were looking at these kinds of connections in relation to them as a financial instrument. And it was really, really integral that projects build a long-term vision, a long roadmap of where the financial value was really going to come from. And so in understanding these market sentiments, we realized that actually we were doing just fine. We didn't have to adjust our strategy. We didn't really have to do much other than keep building and double down on the DNA of the original premise that we started building our project with. And so we started also looking at art and thinking that we really wanted to create an environment during which not only would it be, a tribute to a rainforest, but also a tribute to everything that the rainforest has to offer that's intangible. And so the feeling that you get of peace when you're in one, or this idea that it's ethereal and that you can never really know everything about a rainforest because it's been there for so long. And so by creating this type of artwork and feeling, we really wanted to double down on this idea that it's artistic and collectible, because there's many different versions. There's 10,000 unique versions of these, and they've got orchids or coffee plants, or they've got certain types of illumination. They've got gold features. It really just depends on what you get. It's a random mint. So we doubled down on the artistry of it. And then we made them incredibly immersive. So it wasn't just about experiencing, looking at a rainforest digitally and then thinking of a rainforest. It was about feeling a rainforest. So actually, our NFTs are connected in real time to the forest, to the biodiversity hotspots that we're funding the conservation of. And when it rains there, it rains in your NFT. And when it's sunlight or nighttime or whatever, it actually is reflected in your NFT. So you can experience the daylight changes, the weather changes, and also the sound changes. So if you're listening to this plot at 11 in the morning in the rainforest, it sounds like exactly what's happening in a rainforest at 11 in the morning, because it's a 24-hour sound loop. And so it's accurate to really being immersed within that environment, and also it serves utility later down the line. Another important component was what we were going to do about impact. And again, we really wanted to decouple this idea that you can own a piece of rainforest. You really can't. Honestly, you shouldn't. And so to us, it was about realigning what that underlying incentive was. So we decided to support Rainforest Partnership, which is an organization that's been working in this sector for maybe 20 years. They've discovered tons of new species in biodiversity hotspots. They work through local and indigenous communities, 9 of them specifically. And we really wanted to channel the majority of the proceeds to them directly. directly. And then what they fund is for the communities to earn their own, learn about their own rights. So they actually educate them on like the legal premise by which they can actually claim protected status over the land that they are custodians of. And then they give them the means to start businesses and to like start building their own economic activity so that they're less reliant on donation and they're more reliant on the businesses that they sort of work through. And so this is work that we felt was really empowering locally, and this is why we wanted to focus it on that. But obviously it wasn't enough to just, again, do that. And so we actually partnered with a French company to figure out how low we could get our carbon emissions and also what we could do in order to set a new precedent for how these kinds of projects can be minted. I don't know how much you know about NFTs, but actually the rendering is the part that really has the most amount of carbon emissions. Like, it's not the minting, it's not the blockchain transactionality, it's the rendering. And if we had rendered this the way every other project is rendering theirs through a traditional data center, probably in North America, it would have emitted about 72 tons of carbon. 10,000 three-dimensional pieces, yeah? Three-dimensional, yeah, to create the three-dimensionality of the image and like produce it. So that's generally what causes the most amount of emissions. So about 72 tons of carbon would have been emitted through this collection. We got that down to 6.8 tons of carbon. We shifted to a different power mix. We started recycling the heat that's coming off of the computing power, and we're using it to provide hot water to social housing units in different parts of France. We're providing 4 million liters of hot water to these social housing units through the span of the project. And so it was really important for us to set a new precedent for what we're calling environmental efficiency and actually using Web3 computing power needs to then become an energy and heat source for other types of public goods like public hospitals or social housing units. The other thing that we did was we made it completely multidimensional. Turn the sound on and meditate with it, play our game. We built a whole game ecosystem for it, and actually every single time you play the game, or the more that you do to contribute to the cause of rainforest protection, the more you donate to the charity we're supporting, the more that you participate in events that teach you about the rainforest, the more that you play our game, your wallet NFT actually starts changing. It starts blossoming, growing, it becomes more elaborate, and it comes with more community benefits when you do that. But also, if you stop supporting it, it regresses back to its basic state. So it is a real-time measure of how you're actually impacting rainforest protection as a cause, and it's honestly a badge of honor to be able to say that you're continuously evolving it because of your commitment to rainforest protection. So it is absolutely gamified. It's a very fun, mellow game to play, very simple, kind of like a little Tamagotchi that you gotta take care of and release butterflies into and feed with sunlight and water. And you sort of get to see how each of the different assets starts to grow. And when you reach the final state of evolution, the entire base plot changes and it adds new water elements and new illumination, and it becomes significantly more complex. And you also get to participate in once-in-a-lifetime draws and giveaways for ultra rares, which we're never gonna sell. We're only gonna give away. And the first ultra rare that we've announced is that the person that wins it will get the opportunity to name a recently discovered species in the rainforest. And my condition is please don't name it after some shitcoin. But again, all of this is revolving around engagement. So that means that the utility of this NFT is not, anything related to physical land or ownership or custodialship, but it's actually based on like what you are contributing to this cause. And if that is the behavioral cue that we can set for the underlying value of NFTs, then that's really important to us. On top of that, it means that you have a direct influence over what type of what point you resell it at. So if you resell it in basic state at state 1, whatever you get for it, fine, the market will set that price. But if you decide to evolve it and sell it at a more complex place where more benefits are included, then that's totally your decision. And that's actually more true to the spirit of financial sovereignty than anything we've seen before in the market thus far. And there's collective incentive. So we really want you to support the organization. So what we've done is that every 6 months, when the organization hits its impact targets, we actually make it rain for everyone, and then it blossoms everybody's plot. So even though it's a measure of your individual impact, it's also a measure of how much you're contributing to a collective incentive of actually supporting rainforest protection. And so how do impact NFTs survive or thrive in a bear market? It's really just like holding on to this core idea that an NFT is not like every other financial instrument. It never has been. And the reason it's performing differently in this market than any other financial instrument like a token is specifically because it comes back to the really fundamental core of being a representation of organizing movement through community, and then being able to create cultural shifts around how we sort of organize these instruments in order to serve capitalistic interests, sure, but in a way that's not been done before, and in a way that makes these instruments resonate more. So actually, I think bear markets are made for impact NFTs, and I hope that as you're sort of exploring this space, that you start paying attention to some of these trends. And yeah, anyway, that's kind of really what I came to say. We're minting on Nifty Gateway this month, and so let me know if you want a allow list or whatever. I'm happy to give everyone here a allow list. Yeah.